I am here because I have to show my parents that I am their daughter.
Let Biden sit through an interview like this. He'll be on the ground crying for mommy. He'll say, "Mommy, mommy, please take me home."
We have the 7th highest mortality rate in the world. Our mortality rate is higher than Brazil. It's higher than Russia, and the European Union has us on a travel ban.
When you talk about mortality rates, I think it's the opposite. I think we have one of the lowest mortality rates in the world. Well, we're going to take a look.
We had 900 deaths on a single day.
We will take a look.
This week.
Ready?
You can check it out.
Could you please get me the mortality rate?
Yeah.
Kaylee's right here. I heard we had one of the lowest, maybe the lowest mortality rate anywhere in the world. You have the numbers, please? Because I heard we had the best mortality rate.
These state of similarly situated countries, as Dr. Burks points out, and this is
Number one low mortality rate. I hope you show the scenario because it shows what fake news is all about. Okay, go
I don't
ahead.
think I'm fake news, but I will put
Well, there you are.
Hot enough for you here, Mr. President?
It's hot. It's about, well, sort of almost record-breaking.
You know, we wanted to do it inside. This was your choice.
But I wanted you to sweat a little bit.
Well, we both are.
Biden wants to fund the place.
Sir, he does not.
Look, he signed a charter with Bernie Sanders. I will get that one, just like I was right on the mortality rate. Did you read the charter that he agreed to?
It says nothing about defunding the
Oh,
police.
really? It says abolish. It says fund. Let's go.
All right.
Get me the charter, please.
All right.
Chris, you've got to start studying for these.
He says defund the police.
He says defund the police. They talk about abolishing the police. They talk about illegal aliens pouring.
I look forward to seeing that.
When people proudly had their Confederate flags, they're not talking about racism. They love their flag. It represents the South. They like the South. People right now like the South. I say it's freedom of many things, but it's freedom of speech.
So you're not offended by it?
Well, I'm not offended either by Black Lives Matter. That's freedom of speech. I think that Fort Bragg, Fort Robert E. Lee, all of these forts that have been named that way for a long time, decades and decades.
But the military says they're for this.
Excuse me. I don't care what the military says. 1492, Columbus discovered America. You know, we grew up, you grew up, we all did. That's what we learned. Now they want to make it the 1619 Project. Where did that come from? What does it represent? I don't even know.
It's slavery.
That's what they're saying, but they don't even know. They just want to make a change.
You still have more than 100 days to this election, but at this point, you're losing.
First of all, I'm not losing because those are fake polls. They were fake in 2016, and now they're even more fake. Let's take a test. Let's take a test right now. Let's go down. Joe and I will take a test. Let him take the same test that I took.
Incidentally, I took the test too when I heard that you passed it.
Yeah, how did you do it?
Well, it's not the hardest test.
No, but
It says a picture and it says, what's that? And it's an elephant.
No. You see, that's all misrepresentation.
Well, that's what it was on the web.
It's all misrepresentation. Because, yes, the first few questions are easy, but I'll bet you couldn't even answer the last 5 questions. I'll bet you couldn't. They get very hard, the last 5 questions.
Well, one of them was count back from 100 by 7.
And let me tell you,
93.
you couldn't answer.
All right, what's the question?
Many of the questions. I think mail-in voting is going to rig the election. I really do.
Are you suggesting that you might not accept the results of the election?
I have to see. Look, Hillary Clinton asked me the same thing.
Can you give a direct answer? You will accept the election?
I have to see. Look, I have to see. No, I'm not going to just say yes. I'm not going to say no. And I didn't last time either. I'm not a big fan of Fox. I'll be honest with you.
I can't not say anything anymore. I've been a Republican since I was old enough to vote. I was the president of the second largest Republican club in the state of Florida, serving in the military, serving in law enforcement. You know, I guess I've had the traditional sort of conservative Republican background. I had never seen this cult-like rabidness among the Republican base that they had for Trump. And it was almost like no matter what he did, no matter what he said, it was all fake news. It was all a big conspiracy, and it was all the media out to get him. And it just disheartened me that I couldn't go to a Republican meeting anymore without it being all about Trump. And that's the thing about Trump. Everything is all about him. And so the Republican meetings became all about Trump. As a military veteran, I mean, there's been a number of things over the years that have upset me about Trump, going back to, okay, he dodged the Vietnam War using a bogus medical deferment. Well, I can remember all of the people like me disparaging Bill Clinton for the same thing. Well, here's Donald Trump, who has done exactly the same thing, and they just give him a pass. When you're firing every inspector general, so there's no oversight over your authoritarian things that you're doing, and you're threatening to sue or prosecute John Bolton for publishing a memoir when you're using military tactics to clear a public park, Lafayette Square, using the military to suppress First Amendment. These are things that libertarians are completely against. And there's a significant number of libertarians in the Republican Party. I just avoided watching the news just because I just couldn't take it. And then, the coronavirus hit. And what it did is it forced us all inside. And it forced me, and along with probably the rest of the country, into watching the news, because we wanted information about the virus and what was happening in the world. I wanted to hear from Fauci, I wanted to hear from Birx, I wanted to hear from the Surgeon General, but all we got was Trump, who would get up there, dominate the whole meeting, ramble on about Korea and, Flynn and all these other topics when we're all trying to get information about the pandemic. And then a reporter would ask Fauci a question. In the middle of Fauci answering, Trump would interrupt him. And it drove me crazy. I went to some of my friends and I'm like, you know what? I haven't wanted to speak up against him because I didn't want to burn bridges. I have friendships in the Republican Party here that are decades long. And I knew that if I spoke out publicly or said anything negative about Trump, a lot of these friends would turn on me. And so I just told my friend at that time, I said, you know what? I can't not say anything anymore. I'm concerned about the 2020 election, not only for the country, but also for the Republican Party. Trump has very strong authoritarian streak to him. He cannot tolerate disagreement. He cannot tolerate oversight. And so the only thing right now, keeping those instincts to run amok, is the fact that he wants to get reelected in 2020. Once that's gone, I think he'll be way worse over the next 4 years. So that's why I fear for the country. The cult of personality in the Republican Party being all about Trump needs to be exercised.
I am here because I have to show my parents that I am their daughter and that they did not raise me to accept abuse from men. About 2 days ago, I was walking up the steps of the Capitol when Representative Yoho suddenly turned a corner, and he was accompanied by Representative Roger Williams, and accosted me on the steps right here in front of our nation's Capitol. I was minding my own business, walking up the steps, and Representative Yoho put his finger in my face. He called me disgusting. He called me crazy. He called me out of my mind. And he called me dangerous. And then he took a few more steps, and after I had recognized his comments as rude, he walked away and said, "I'm rude. You're calling me rude." I took a few steps ahead, and I walked inside and cast my vote. I walked back out, and there were reporters in the front of the Capitol. And in front of reporters, Representative Yoho called me, and I quote, "a fucking bitch." These are the words that Representative Yoho levied against a congresswoman. The congresswoman that not only represents New York's 14th congressional district, but every congresswoman and every woman in this country. Because all of us have had to deal with this in some form, some way, some shape, at some point in our lives. And I want to be clear that Representative Yoho's comments were not deeply hurtful or piercing to me, because I have worked a working class job. I have waited tables in restaurants, I have ridden the subway, I have walked the streets in New York City. And this kind of language is not new. I have encountered words uttered by Mr. Yoho and men uttering the same words as Mr. Yoho while I was being harassed in restaurants. I have tossed men out of bars that have used language like Mr. Yoho's. And I have encountered this type of harassment riding the subway in New York City. This is not new, and that is the problem. Mr. Yoho was not alone. He was walking shoulder to shoulder with Representative Roger Williams. And that's when we start to see that this issue is not about one incident. It is cultural. It is a culture of lack of impunity, of accepting of violence and violent language against women, and an entire structure of power that supports that. Because not only have I been spoken to disrespectfully, particularly by members of the Republican Party and elected officials in the Republican Party, not just here, but the President of the United States last year told me to go home to another country, with the implication that I don't even belong in America. The governor of Florida, Governor DeSantis, before I even was sworn in, called me a whatever that is. Dehumanizing language is not new. And what we are seeing is that incidents like these are happening in a pattern. This is a pattern of an attitude towards women and dehumanization of others. So while I was not deeply hurt or offended by little comments that are made, when I was reflecting on this, I honestly thought that I was just going to pack it up and go home. It's just another day, right? But then yesterday, Representative Yoho decided to come to the floor of the House of Representatives and make excuses for his behavior. And that I could not let go. I could not allow my nieces, I could not allow the little girls that I go home to, I could not allow victims of verbal abuse and worse to see that excuse, and to see our Congress accept it as legitimate and accept it as an apology, and to accept silence as a form of acceptance. I could not allow that to stand, which is why I am rising today to raise this point of personal privilege. And I do not need Representative Yoho to apologize to me. Clearly, he does not want to. Clearly, when given the opportunity, he will not. And I will not stay up late at night waiting for an apology from a man who has no remorse over calling women and using abusive language towards women. But what I do have issue with is using women, our wives and daughters, as shields and excuses for poor behavior. Mr. Yoho mentioned that he has a wife and 2 daughters. I am 2 years younger than Mr. Yoho's youngest daughter. I am someone's daughter too. My father, thankfully, is not alive to see how Mr. Yoho treated his daughter. My mother got to see Mr. Yoho's disrespect on the floor of this house towards me on television. And I am here because I have to show my parents that I am their daughter and that they did not raise me to accept abuse from men. Now, What I am here to say is that this harm that Mr. Yoho tried to levy against me was not just an incident directed at me. But when you do that to any woman, what Mr. Yoho did was give permission to other men to do that to his daughters. In using that language in front of the press, he gave permission to use that language against his wife, his daughters, women in his community. And I am here to stand up to say that is not acceptable. I do not care what your views are. It does not matter how much I disagree or how much it incenses me or how much I feel that people are dehumanizing others. I will not do that myself. I will not allow people to change and create hatred in our hearts. And so what I believe is that having a daughter does not make a man decent. Having a wife does not make a decent man. Treating people with dignity and respect makes a decent man. And when a decent man messes up, as we all are bound to do, he tries his best and does apologize. Not to save face, not to win a vote. He apologizes genuinely to repair and acknowledge the harm done so that we can all move on. Lastly, what I want to express to Mr. Yoho is gratitude. I want to thank him for showing the world that you can be a powerful man and accost women. You can have daughters and accost women without remorse. You can be married and accost women. You can take photos and project an image to the world of being a family man and accost women without remorse and with a sense of impunity. It happens every day in this country. It happened here on the steps of our nation's capital. It happens when individuals who hold the highest office in this land admit to hurting women and using this language against all of us.
That was brilliance, grace, intelligence, and complete dedication to what justice, equality, and dignity in the United States looks like.
Shame on you!
But it was obviously much different.
Shame on you! You are an embarrassment! You are an embarrassment! We're getting record-breaking cases every day, and you are doing nothing! You are falsifying information, and you are misleading the public. Over 4,000 people have died, and you are blaming the protesters. You guys have no plan, and you're doing nothing. Shame on you. Shame on you. Don't touch social distance. Don't touch me. Shame on both of you. You guys are misleading the public. You have no plan. 4,000 people have died, and we're getting record cases every day. Every day. Shame on you. You should resign, Ron DeSantis. Resign!
So I think the
breaking cases every day, and you are doing nothing.
So I think
you are falsifying information, and you are misleading the public.
This country's going through an unprecedented health crisis, right? Like a pandemic. And some states have, acted more or less responsibly and are getting through it. Some countries have done the same. And other places, other, governments have not. And here in Florida, we're seeing the consequences of that. There's no coherent policy, and it's all based on political calculations, right? And if they would have done, the hard, like, let's close everything down for, 3 to 5 weeks, like other states, we would have been through this already. But it's just getting worse and worse and worse. Listen to the experts, right? The epidemiologists that have dealt with these type of things and can tell us what's going on, right? Don't make decisions solely based on political motivations around the November election, because people are dying. Please listen to the public health experts on health-related issues, because you guys have messed this up real badly in Florida.
What are you doing? Use your words. What are you doing? Use your words. What are you doing?
I haven't done anything wrong.
Use your words. What is going on?
We need to know.
Who are you?
Why are you taking?
NLG will get you out. What's your name?
What's your
Tell us your
name?
name.
What's your name?
Okay, you're fine. We'll get you out.
Bro, what?
We got you, friend.
We got you. NLG.
You just violated their rights.
Oh, kidnapping people.
You just violated their rights.
How are we supposed to know who you are? How are we supposed to know you're not kidnapping us and you're civilians kidnapping us?
Now, Chad Wolf, maybe you could also mention what's going on in Portland, because we sent you there recently. It was out of control.
What you find in Portland is about 5.5 weeks of continued violence against a federal courthouse there that the Department of Homeland Security protects. We've had to send in additional individuals.
We've done a great job in Portland. Portland was totally out of control, and they went in, and I guess we have many people right now in jail, and we very much quelled it. And if it starts again, we'll quell it again very easily. It's not hard to do if you know what you're doing.